This subscriber says, I watched lots of painting videos on YouTube. On some, we're advised to begin our paintings with a block-in. On others, we're shown all the details being put in from the beginning to the end. My question is, first of all, what is a block-in? And why is it important? And second, what's wrong with putting details in as you go? Well, let's put some details in. Okay, we got three questions here. One question is, what is a block-in? Another question is, why is a block-in necessary? And the other one's, what's wrong with putting details in as you go? We'll start first of all with, what is a block-in? A block-in is a placement of shapes, colors, and values. And I'm going to show you, before I even go into the detail thing, I want to show you how you would do a block-in and maybe explain why. So I have here a scene that's got lots of details in it. All these grasses are details, grasses down here. It's kind of a simple scene, but I wanted to get something that was simple so that you could kind of see what's going on here. Well, if I start the painting out by painting all these details, I run a risk of the thing falling out of a good composition, of it not being a good composition, because if I start out with the details, I'm not seeing the whole picture as I go. And as artists, it's important for us to see the whole picture developing as we go. Kind of like a flower starts out as a seed, and then the whole flower develops as it's going, not just first a petal and then something else and something else. So it's the same thing with painting. We need to see the whole thing developing and growing as we go. And so in order to do that, we can start with a block-in. Now, before I go into this, now that I've said I'm going to do it, there's a whole range of methods that artists use for blocking in. Some artists block in very generally, and some block in very generally, but a little bit more defined, or spaces or shapes are a little bit more defined than others. It's up to the artist what feels right about the blocking. And the important thing is that you're concerned with the larger shapes and the larger masses of value. Now I'll show you what I mean just very quickly. So with this scene, all these little details, not going to fool with them, I'm going to squint. Now that's the best way to block in. If I squint, I can see the large shapes. If I squint, I can see that this is a large shape. This is a large shape. I can see the light, where the light's hitting here is large shape. This is, in essence, and this. So there are 5 major shapes there that create this composition. Then I have the opportunity, if I don't start out with details, I have the opportunity to place those wherever I want them to go in the composition. Now, the object of painting is not just to copy a photograph or just to copy something, but the object of painting, the real joy in painting, is when you take a reference, whether it's a plein air reference or a still life or whatever, or a photo, and then do something with it, do something creative with it. Now, so if I want to do a block-in of this, and I want to place it, the first question I ask is, if I place it so that I have a focal point right here, which is what this scene seems to do, is that focal point in this composition located in a place that will give the whole scene balance? Now, the way I can find that, there are other quick tips about this, but one way I can do that is just simply come across here with an imaginary line that goes corner to corner, put my finger here and place it right there. That is what we call sweet spot. And if I look at this and that, I see that yes, I can do that. That falls pretty good in a sweet spot area of this. And so I know then that I can use the placement that I see here. Now I confess, I cropped this photograph so it would have that placement. But you could, if you're out in nature, you can do the same sort of thing, where you can find a square or a rectangle like this, as you look between it, you can find an area that has a good placement for whatever focal point you find. All right, now that I've answered that question, I can start the block in. And we'll do it very generally here, because the block in does. First thing we need to do is to do just a preliminary sketch. So I know that the focal point will be right here. All right, so as I squint, now I squint and I see this large shape, and that's what I want to indicate. So I'll just do a very quick, but as close to the division of the shape of that, the edges of that shape as I can get. And then I'll come here and I'll do the same thing. So I'll come here, I'm focused squinting, so I see that shape, this shape right here, it does something like this, goes up here, comes something like this, and I'm combining this whole thing as a shape. That's what we mean by mass. It's a mass of dark, not a mess, but a mass, M-A-S-S. A mass of dark that creates, when I squint, I see that as one dark shape. And so when I'm doing the block in, then that's what I'm concerned about, is getting that one large shape. So that can represent the large, this large shape. And then I can see now that this large shape, so I squint at that shape, and where do I want to begin it? And I can choose where I want to begin. And this is sort of does something like that. So there's another large. Now this, when I squint, this all ends up being the same mass, the same shape. I know this is the cast shadow and this is the image, but when I squint, it's a single shape. And so I'm going to lay that out as a single shape. And I'll just pull it down like that and come out like that and go off the edge like that. Now I have down here another, well, I have two. I could turn that into one if I wanted to, but and this shape overlaps that shape. So here we go. And I may eventually, now I don't want this to end up in the middle right here, and I don't want it to be right aligned with my focal point. So I can bring that, I can put that wherever I want to. I can bring that shape and let it end right there, and then pick up this shape and allow it to go there. Now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, we're counting this. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, 6 is all right. If you get too many shapes in there, it can get confusing. All right, now that is blocking. That is the preliminary drawing. To block that in, I need a large brush, the largest brush that I can find in my brush collection to do the job, because we don't want a block in to be detailed. The block in lays the foundation, and it places the shape, it places the values and the colors so that you can then go into those values and colors and create the details so that they all hold together, mainly to define the shape, but also so that you can show where the light's coming from. So I'm just looking, this is one large shape. It's one large shape of multiple colors. So for the block in, now I'm going to do this as a really loose block in. For the block in, what I can do now is I can determine, okay, there's a dark green. It's not the darkest green, but it's a dark green. So I can just move into a dark yellow green. So I can move into a dark yellow green, and I can simply begin to do this. This is block in, where you simply place the shape. Now if you want to place the shape when you're placing it, if you want to place it, allow the brush strokes to move in the direction that the shape is moving. That then is part of the block in choice. Now I'm not allowing this to go up into the sky. That's detail. All those grasses is detail. But I'm not looking at those. I'm just simply looking at it as if I'm squinting at it, and I see that we have green there, there, and there, and a little bit of green in here. I see also that in the block in I have a little bit darker green. It's a little bit cooler, so I'm going to add a little bit of blue, and maybe that green is a little bit more neutral. So I will neutralize it just a little bit with this is the Rembrandt Transparent Oxide Red I'm using to neutralize it. So I'll get it a little bit neutral and maybe a little bit cooler, and then I can block in this, and I can simply block in the shape. Simply block in the shape. Now what I'm aiming for is to as I'm blocking in the shape, I'm pretty much painting what I see when I squint like this. Close one eye, almost close the other completely so that all the details go out and you'll be able to see those large shapes in their values. Okay, let's see. And now I'm seeing that as this comes down, it changes color, gets cooler, and that's what I'll do. Then I'll pick up a little blue, get that a little bit more neutral, and I can aim my color towards the color that I'm seeing here. And so that changes color, and it goes out like this, sort of like that. Quick, not much time in it at all. And then as I come down into here, I'm seeing a squint. When I squint, I see that large mass of dark, and I simply place it in. Now I've changed the location of where that dark ends, so that's the way I place it in. As I move over to here, I see that area is a combination of, well, when I look at it and squint it, I see it more as a lighter, a yellow-green, rather than the darker here. That means there's a little bit more light hitting it, and so I will simply place that very roughly and very quickly. Now I'm seeing some more of the orange appear right here, so I'll place that. And I'm seeing that with my eye closed now. And now my sensibility tells me to connect that because we don't want that to be jerky. Now the other large shape is right here. And so I'm going to rinse out the brush for that large shape. And that large shape tends to be a little bit more in the orange, low intensity orange range right in here. As I squint at it, and it's a little bit lighter. So I'm going to add just a little bit more of the orange to this. This is quinacridone. No, it's not quinacridone burn. It's transparent oxide red that I've made a 3-value scale of. So I'll place that. Just place it as I see it. A little bit of it here, here. I'm seeing that a little bit darker right here. So let me go into the darker portion, get that a little bit darker, right in here. Still blocking in, not being specific, still just blocking in those major values and shapes. And I pull that down right there, get that just a little bit darker right here, right there. Now I see it turning, getting a little bit more blue, cooler. It's that shadow that's getting cooler. It's not quite that dark, so I'll just reach in for a little bit of white, and that's pulled for ultramarine blue and mixed it with what was already in the brush, which gives me a low intensity ultramarine blue. Still very, very dark, but it's cool. Right here, that works. So I'll just pull that in right in there. Oh, I see a little bit more of that orange right there. Okay, I always like to block the shadow portions in first. And then I see, now I make a decision. Yes, I think so. I think we could use a little bit more of that orange on the edge there, so I'll just do that. Now see, all right. Now, so those portions and those colors are blocked in. Now, I'll go in and block in the lighter portions. Sometimes when you block in a sky, depending on how much activity there is in the sky, sometimes when you block in the sky, when you start to move into the refinement stage where you are beginning to hone in on things and give them a little bit more what you would call detail. Sometimes you don't have to do a whole lot in the sky, but you don't really ever know that until you start doing it. Now that sky is kind of it's faded in the photograph, but there's enough sunlight here that tells us it's a bluer sky. So I'm going to go in for the ultramarine blue and mix in a little bit in here with this low intensity color. And then, let's see if I can get a value. Let's just take a little white right there and see now if I can find a value of that sky that will do the job. Whoops, wrong place. Alright, let's compare that. a little dark. It's better to start out dark. And usually when you squint, especially shadow areas go darker than you see them when your eyes are open. And that's a good thing, because if you start the blocking a little bit darker than you need it to be, it's a lot easier then to place those lights in and to get those lights varied the way you need them. Whereas if you put it in too light and you start to get it darker, you might end up getting a little bit chalky. So there's a little technical, it's a technical thing, it's a little technical hint for you. Alright, so now I'm going to just get this in as fast as I can. I don't need to be spending a lot of time trying to be precise, but what I do want to happen in this block in of the sky is I want it to start dark at the top and get lighter as it comes to the bottom. That's what I see. That's what you usually see in the sky. I don't see it so much there, but I'm the artist, so I want to make it that way. Alright, so and of course we get that gradation. And also, apropos of what I said about how much work you have to do in the sky later, when you're putting the sky in, try, even in the block in, try to put it in with crisscross strokes, not back and forth like this, because if you just go back and forth like there, you will establish that rhythm that just moves back and forth. It would be more difficult then to shape it later. So it's better when you're putting that sky in, it's better to place it in with strokes that are crisscross, because the space in the sky when it's clear like that doesn't have any rhythm in it. It's just stuff. And so, but we want our paintings to have rhythm in them. We don't want our paintings to suffer. So as we're blocking in the sky, we just pay attention to that kind of thing. Now I want to bring this down much lighter at the bottom. And now, if we had clouds in the sky, we would simply place the shapes of the clouds the same way as we place the shapes of everything else. Just place those shapes. Now I'm bringing that sky as close as I can down to these other shapes, so that now when I get ready to do the refinement part, which we'll not do in this quick tip, I can just pull those shapes right up into the sky. So I'm probably taking a little bit too much time, but it's all right. I usually will do that if I'm blocking in. If I have a large sky, I will if it's just a clear plain sky like that, when it's not any clouds or any other activity in it, I'll usually pretty much put the sky in a way that it might stay throughout the painting. So now I don't have to get rid of my marks there, but it's sort of all right. Now we've got this one more shape that we need to block in, and so I can see that that is a neutral orange, yellow, neutralized yellow orange. So I'll start here, and this is a very light color. And so one important thing when you're blocking in is to get those values right, even if you don't get the colors. But if you get the colors and the values right that you see underneath, like when you're squinting, you're already ahead of the game. Now let's see. We'll get that just a little bit darker so I'll have more latitude. See what I'm doing there? Just this is the transparent oxide red. I'm just taking the lighter version of it and mixing it into blue. The orange and the red and the blue neutralize each other, and that gives me then closer to what I'm looking at there. Now let's get just a little bit more yellow in there. Alright, now let's see how close are we. Put it down here. Alright, I'm going to put it down there. I'd like to be just maybe a little bit lighter. Okay, now blocking in this part, I'll start right here and just make strokes that block it in. Now also, when you're doing that block in version, you may have some shapes that you will redefine when you begin to define, or I call it refining, when you start refining this the painting, when you begin to then go in and begin to create the images that you see in there. You might make changes. The block-in, as I said, is a placement. It's simply placing shapes, large shapes, values and colors, so that you have a foundation onto which you can build the rest of the painting. So you don't worry about small stuff in block-in. Don't fret with small stuff on block-in. And now when you finish the block-in portion, it's a good idea to stand back and compare, squint again, and compare one step at a time. You can do it by what I call scanning the piece, scanning the block-in. You can start, if it's a horizontal piece, you can go in this direction. If it's a vertical piece, you can go from top to bottom or bottom to top. But a good way to do that is to hold your hand like this in front of your eye so that you actually blot out from your vision everything except a small area. And you can take your other hand like this and do the same thing to your scene, to that part. And let's look at those together and see now, do I have the placement of the large shapes? Do I have the placement of the values? And do I have the placement of the colors? Is all that close enough to what I'm looking at there? And this is where you make edits to your block-in. So you can scan them like this, going one step at a time, taking one section at a time like that. And then if everything is placed the way you see it and perceive it and want it to be, that's when you start putting the details in. Now here we come to why can't you do the details first? If you try to do the details first, it's not, you don't know how it's going to go. You're just copying stuff. You're not really making a painting. Now I know that's going to get me criticized, but I don't care. I can handle it. You're not really making a painting if you're just starting with details and copying details as you go. But when you're responding to large shapes, colors and values, you're composing your painting, and then once you have that basic foundation for that composition, then you can start developing it, and then you can decide just how many of those details do you want to put in. And sometimes it's better not to put them all in. If you leave a little bit of mystery there for the viewer, that then makes it a little bit more interesting. So perhaps that answers the question. So just keep in mind that block-in is about placement, simply about placement. Placement enables you to be a good composer of paintings. Be sure and view all of our quick tips. And while you're doing so, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell so you'll always get a notice when we produce a new quick tip, which is every week. And if you have a question, leave it in the comments section and we'll make a quick tip for you. Also, take a trip over to DianeMize.com where I have full-length lessons, downloads, DVDs, lots of other stuff there, some free stuff for you. And while you're there, you can subscribe to the newsletter, and that way you'll always be informed every time we do something new.